Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 4, Episode 18 of Full Time. I am your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. We remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, we are incredibly happy to welcome you back here to Full Time, where we get to talk about all things regarding the beautiful game. Gee, a very happy rainy Thursday evening here to my friend. How are you?
Not too bad tonight. Scarps, how are you doing?
All is good in my neck of the woods, and I'm very excited for today's show. In today's show, in fact, we are going to be talking about the Champions League, the Europa League, Europe's Big Five, and local and regional soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get today's show going with news in the world of football. And that news comes from the English Premier League. It has been announced that at the beginning of the 2025-2026 season, the English Premier League will be introducing a salary cap pending the motion being passed. According to an article from The Athletic, we understand the following information. Quote, Premier League clubs have agreed to push ahead with the plans for a hard spending cap as part of a squad cost rules that will come into effect at the start of the 2025-26 season. The measure was discussed at a Premier League shareholders meeting and is now set to be voted on at the league's annual general meeting in June 2024. The salary cap will anchor the maximum permitted spending of any club to a multiple of what the lowest earning side receives via the Premier League's centralized broadcast and commercial deals, end quote. Gitano, there is still some red tape and some paperwork to be sorted out here, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I just, for a multitude of reasons, think this is just a terrible idea. It's just going to be a disaster. I think the English and European fans, they don't have the salary cap. We're, as North Americans, Canada, the US, basically every single league that we watch, at home, in quotations, has a salary cap. We kind of understand the ins and outs. I don't think they quite understand what they're asking for. I think they just, very simply just want to limit what the top teams are spending because they don't want them to spend that money. Who wants to see their rivals spending more money? Who wants to see the bigger teams kind of running away with the league? And not really understanding the whole scope of what they're looking for. Because yes, it's great to cap, the salary that the teams can spend. And I see a lot of people going to say, oh, it's going to, level the playing field. It's going to equalize things. It's not. So I've got the actual from Football Ref, the wage bills annually for each team in the Premier League right now. The top one is United at 205 million for the season, City are at 200 million, Arsenal at 166 million. So let's just say they cap it at 200 million. And this is all in euros, by the way. That doesn't mean that a team like Burnley is going to spend 200 million euros on their wage bill, right? They currently spend 38.5. They're probably still going to spend in that ballpark. It's not just because you stop the top teams from spending, it doesn't mean the bottom teams are going to spend more. If that was the case, it might be something, if they were thinking of that, adopting the MLB's it's kind of a soft salary cap. So there's a cap limit. So currently in the MLB, it's about 230 million US. And anything you spend over that, they call it luxury tax. And you basically have to pay back the lower league or lower table teams basically for being better than them. That's kind of how it works. And currently the New York Yankees have paid 62% of the entire MLB luxury tax ever because their owners want to spend money on their players. They want to sign the best players. And I also don't think fans realize that the reason why the Premier League is the biggest league in the world is because there's so much money in, because the owners can afford and are willing to spend that kind of money on the best players in the world. And I don't want to see as a fan, someone like Bukayo Saka or Phil Foden have, a lucrative offer overseas and see them leave the Premier League because Arsenal or City or whoever just can't afford to pay them. I want to see the best players in the league or in the world playing in the Premier League, even if it's for Arsenal, if it's for United, Chelsea, whatever. I want the best players playing in the Premier League, and I want the clubs to be able to afford the best players. I think it's just all around an awful idea.
Yeah, and you summarized it beautifully in so many ways there, but in the sense that they have this idea, and in theory, is it the worst idea in the world? No, but they don't necessarily know what they're doing, and the application of it, I think, is going to be way off the mark. So what I can end up seeing is that they try this, realize very quickly that it's not going to work for all of the reasons and more that you just mentioned. And yeah, I do remember years ago too, somebody at the gym asked me, why isn't there a salary cap in soccer? And if I ever thought that we would see one, and I laughed and I said, well, no, we'll never see one. But there's a multitude of reasons why there's not a salary cap in European football. And in this case, specifically the Premier League. And it's for all the reasons that you just mentioned. So in theory, to maybe create more parity, yes, I kind of understand it. But again, the application of it doesn't make any sense. So I think kind of like I was texting you the other day about how the whole blue card idea really came and went so quickly. I could see this one coming in and going just as quick, if not even quicker. The only thing that might make it stick around more is that there's finances involved and that maybe some lower end teams might think that this is their opportunity. But even then, I don't think any teams that are actually involved in this truly believe it, especially from the inside looking out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and especially for like the lower table teams, like they should be the ones wanting Premier League, like the top clubs to spend more, because that's going to keep bringing that money in. Like, if you had told me 10 years ago a team like Brighton or Leicester would be competing with like AC Milan and Inter for like transfer targets, I would have laughed in your face, because that's it would have been ridiculous at the time. But now that's a real thing. Like these mid-table, even lower mid-table Premier League teams can afford to chase the same targets as some other top European teams because there's so much money in the Premier League. And I think if they'll be like taking their own knees out, basically. I think it's just, like they're just not thinking straight here.
Yeah, and you know what? I remember years ago, and you and I talked about this years ago. I talked about this with other people years ago, that the financial play rules, when they were originally set out, to me made no sense. I thought
They
that
still don't.
they still don't. They still don't. But what I would say is that there is a little bit more clarity, at least with financial fair play, where they're going with it, as opposed to what was originally set out, where I had absolutely no idea about it. If they can tighten up the financial fair play and get a concrete definition and working orders in place as to how that's going to be implemented, I think that they ought to just go with that rather than the salary cap. Wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, FFP is that's another hour, 3 hour episode here. Yeah, I think if an owner has income that they want to spend on their team, whether that's in player wages and transfer fees and building new stadiums, whatever they want to do, as long as it's kind of, it doesn't even have to be self-sustaining, but as long as it's not just pouring money into a giant pit, why can't they? And I know like it's kind of tough to kind of zoom out a bit and be like, yes, it's sport and that, but it's at the end of the day, it's a business. And I can't imagine looking at another business that I'm kind of not really related with and just going, yeah, you can't spend as much money as you want. Like if you want to pay your employees more, sorry, you can't, because I don't want you to, because I want to pay my employees less. Like that's, to me, is just ridiculous. And with FFP, like I said, if a club is reasonably self-sustainable, there's always going to be some losses, unless you're one of the top teams. Like if an owner wants to spend their money, I don't see why it should be limited.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think it's necessarily fair to dictate that, but I think you also brought up a really strong point regarding the MLB, and I could be wrong on this for the second thing that I'm going to say, so I'll turn it to you in a moment. But I know for the NBA, the Golden State Warriors for quite some time were paying luxury tax as well because they were essentially going over what was meant to be paid, but they were paying in the luxury tax, so then everything kind of evened out. Did the Tampa Bay Lightning in the NHL do that a few years ago, or am I wrong in saying that? I thought I may have heard something.
No. So they and what after the Vegas Golden Knights do this as well. They basically circumvent the salary cap. So there's something called the long-term injury reserve. So if a player's injured and they're going to be out for a certain amount of time, basically their salary doesn't count because they're not playing.
Okay.
So what happens is a lot of their star players, conveniently get hurt.
Us or something?
Exactly, because there's no salary cap in the playoffs. So these players, get hurt, and their $8 or $9 or $10 million is removed from the salary cap. At the deadline, the team makes a big acquisition, and then miraculously on day one of the playoffs, they're healthy again. And again, if the Premier League wants to play this game, teams are going to find the loopholes. They're going to play the game too. Yeah. So yeah, I think like if they put regulations in, teams are just going to loophole it. City have the best lawyers in the world. Like they will find, Arsenal, all the top teams that can afford the best lawyers in the world are going to find the ways to exploit this, and it's just going to be chasing their tail, the Premier League, of, oh, well, we put in these rules, oh, they found a loophole, well, now we got to close this loophole, they found another loophole. It's just, and I know it's like kind of shitty to say like, oh, just like let it just Wild West, whatever they want to do, but like at this point, like it's gotten the Premier League to the point where it is, like, why stop now?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be this sort of hamster wheel effect, wouldn't you say? Because it is always going to be like the next thing that's going to try and plug up. So, yeah, it was worth mentioning at the top of our show here, and I'm glad that we did, and that was a good conversation. But as time goes on, if there's any new developments, which I'm sure that there will be, we'll definitely talk about it here on Full Time. And now, Gitano, let's really get it going with the Champions League. The first leg of games have wrapped up in the semifinals, and we're going to review all of those for you all here and now. First, it was Bayern Munich and Real Madrid who played to a 2-2 draw after a pretty intense battle. The return leg is at the Bernabeu with a spot in the Champions League final on the line. Your thoughts on this game specifically and what it means going into the second leg?
I thought Bayern Munich were really unlucky. Two kind of individual errors, both from the same player, kind of just sewered them. Almost similar to the Arsenal tie, where they played really well, and then it's just that one little lapse, that one moment, and you can't give Real Madrid that one moment. We've seen it a million times. They will take it, and they will take advantage of it. But overall, yeah, a very interesting tactical battle between the two managers. It's a different kind of entertainment. Like it's kind of a real thinker watching that one, but it was a phenomenal game.
It was indeed. And do you think going into the second leg now, because I kind of have this weird feeling like really Bayern have to play as close to a perfect game as possible. Obviously they got to take their chances, and they're going to have chances, I believe, but defensively they can't make those errors, can they?
God, no. I mean, like, they're lucky to even be in the competition at this point with some of the errors and the times that they've made them. Arsenal, could have easily capitalized on one of those. Give Arsenal one more of those chances, they would have, tied up that tie. They basically need to be perfect for the next 90 minutes.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to come down to, especially going up against the giant like Real Madrid. So definitely looking forward to the second leg there. And in the other semifinal, it was Dortmund who got the better of PSG in the first leg by a score of 1-0. Gitano, it's all on to the second leg in this tie. And I do have to say that goal that Dortmund scored, Füllkrug, I believe, was the one who got the ball over the top. Number one, that pass was out of this world, and the touch was sublime. The technique on that was just insane. Good finish on the end of it, but they're up 1-0. What can you make of everything right now?
Yeah, and as much as I don't want to take away from the pass and the touch and the finish, because it was all like just top tier. He's like blatantly signaling he wants the ball over the top about 5 yards before he gets to the back line, and they just stand there. They don't drop off at all. There's no awareness from anyone there. So yeah, like PSG just looked awful there. But yeah, the ball over the top, beautiful. The touch was just perfect. Set himself just enough that it was right into his stride. He had that time to look up. Donnarumma maybe should have made that save. Wasn't the most accurate in terms of picking a corner, off the inside of the post. But yeah, phenomenal finish. I can't believe Dortmund are like 90 minutes of almost perfect football away from another Champions League final. Going to Paris is going to be tough. That's going to be a hostile environment, but also that kind of works in their favor. If PSG don't get off to a great start, maybe slip up, give up an early chance, miss an early chance, the PSG ultras will turn on them really quickly.
Yes.
And that could play fully into Dortmund's hands. I expect fireworks, both literally and metaphorically, in that game.
I totally agree with that. And, I think it's going to come down to two things for Dortmund, for me at least. Tactically, obviously, they're going to be having meetings. They're going to be working on at the training ground all week, these types of things. But they got to get it right from a defensive point of view, because I think the counter-attacking opportunities are going to be there. Those sort of first phase balls into the front man, or even just going directly into the channel, I think they're going to be there, because PSG's back line doesn't look particularly organized. So I think that those types of balls will be there. But then the second thing, it is going to have to be a case of mentally and psychologically in that team talk. I'd probably imagine it'll sound something like, hey, you're 90 minutes away from this, go get the job done and focus. So I think if Dortmund can kind of piece all of those things together, easier said than done, obviously, but if they can do it, they're off to the Champions League final. And man, oh man, do we ever hope that that's the case, because we both picked for them to be there, and we both hope that they will win it. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed, and excitement incoming for the second leg.
And can I just quickly say how good Jadon Sancho looked in that game?
He even got compliments from Manchester United Football Club, if you could believe that.
I don't know what is going on at United that he was so horrible there, but I'm so happy for him personally that he's clearly just in a better space. But in terms of watching a footballer play, that was just, you just can't ask for more from a winger. No. And he maybe didn't get the goals and assists that show, but if you watch that 90 minutes, that was incredible from him.
It was an incredibly mature performance.
Exactly.
He was excellent, and he deserves his flowers, and he's been getting it in the media. And like I said, usually, as we know, the media surrounding Manchester United is really negative. Like Ten Hag, I'm surprised he doesn't have hair, but I'm surprised if he did have hair, that it would definitely be gray at this point. But yeah, a lot of praise coming Sancho's way, and he totally deserves it. He had an excellent performance, and got to do it one more time to get to the final, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. A reminder to our listeners that the second leg of games in the Champions League will go Tuesday and Wednesday, May 7th and May 8th. In our next episode of Full Time, we will have the second leg results for you all, along with who has qualified for the Champions League final. Let's shift it over to the Europa League here, G. And first, we're going to start by looking at Marseille and Atalanta. A couple of early goals in the first leg would cancel each other out, leading to a 1-1 draw. And as a result, G, it's all tied up on aggregate, and it's all to play for in the second leg between Marseille and Atalanta. So your thoughts here?
Yeah, I thought, the two early goals, I think both teams were just kind of a little shaky, a little nervous. And then, a goal on either side kind of settled the tie down. I think both teams kind of, locked in and focused up. The kind of second half of the game was a lot more what I was expecting from it. Not very open, very tight, very, I don't want to use the word safe, but neither team really pushing, really testing. So I'm really excited for that second leg, because, one of them kind of has to go for it.
Yeah, one of them is going to have to try and take a risk, but I think what we could say second leg is that the nerves are going to pretty much dissipate. They're going to go, because they got it out of the way there in the first half of the first leg. So I think it sets up a really nice second leg between those two teams. And I would say at this point, it's 50-50. Anybody can go through. Yeah. Awesome to see as a neutral fan. And in the other semifinal between Roma and Leverkusen, it is advantage Leverkusen, and a pretty solid advantage at that. They take down Roma by a score of 2-0 away from home, setting up what will be a pretty favorable second leg for them. Leverkusen looked pretty excellent in the contest overall. They generated plenty of chances, and the scoreline suggests that they also played quite well. So your analysis here, sir?
Yeah, and, I go back to what I said last week. I thought that Stadio Olimpico was going to be kind of that advantage, that home field advantage for Roma. I thought they could really take advantage of that. And that was just a masterclass from Bayer Leverkusen of how to just nullify home field advantage. And we've run out of, ways to describe them, but they are just like playing football on a level that we've not ever seen. Like genuinely, I would say I've never seen City play like this, where it's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what is going on in that game. They get the result. It's been incredible to watch. They've set themselves up nearly perfectly for the return leg in Germany. I mean, like, I'm knocking on all the wood here. I don't see how they could mess this up.
Me neither. And not with that manager, not with that squad mentality, not with the quality that they play with technically, not with the tactical brilliance that they have. Everything just seems like it's written in the stars for them. And my, oh my, do they deserve it? So an excellent first leg sets up a great second leg for them. And Roma basically has all the work to do. And they almost have to be not just perfect, but more than perfect. And they need things to go their way. By fate, if you will. So yeah, I think it's all Leverkusen going into the second leg, but it is football. So as we know, anything can happen. So we will indeed keep an eye. A reminder to our listeners that the next games in the Europa League, which will be the second leg, of course, of the semifinals, are going to go next Thursday, May 9th. And as is the case with the Champions League, we will be able to analyze the results of the Europa League semifinal second legs in our next episode of Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to Full Time on the Game Source Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. We'll now get into Europe's Big Five with reviews of all of the top leagues across Europe. And we are going to start in France with Ligue 1, as it is now official. PSG are the champions of France once again. After their draw this past weekend, which ended in a score of 3-3 against Le Havre, PSG have won enough points whereby they cannot be caught mathematically in the table. They have now won a record-extending 12th Ligue 1 title, and Kylian Mbappe, the main man at the club, has won his 7th. Gitano, it's a fitting farewell domestically for Mbappe, as he will leave this summer, as we know, for Real Madrid. As an aside, Ligue 1 has dropped down to 34 games this season for the first time. In years past, they have always played 38 games in league play, but with the decreased number of teams in the top flight now, the number of league games have decreased as a result. So, G, if you could, please speak about PSG, as they have won the league with 3 games remaining.
Yeah, kind of took them long enough to get it over the line here, but couldn't have timed it much better, giving themselves basically the rest of their season to focus on the Champions League. They've looked better than I think in teams past from PSG. Just they look more, and they're not nowhere near done, but they look more like a team. The way they're playing, it seems like there's an actual stylistic goal and philosophy to how they play, instead of just pass the ball to the $100 million attackers and hope that they score and then kind of vibe, I guess. They've looked a lot better. I expect to see kind of a step up domestically from them next year, where not that they're going to be wrapping up the league in February or March like before, but I think they've laid a pretty solid foundation for the next kind of generation of this team.
I fully agree with that. And some of the transfers, I think, probably helped their case, as we talked about earlier this year, and things like this. So yeah, more of a team, so it looks. And I mean, if it doesn't work out for them in the Champions League, I would say that yes, going forward in the years to come, they probably have a little bit more stability, and that'll bode well for them. So PSG, champions of France again. We did outline that, and we did predict that at the beginning of the season. It has come true a little bit later than we would have expected, but regardless, what we thought the inevitable would be has in fact happened. So congrats to PSG. Gitano, let's bounce things across to the Premier League now. It has officially become a 2-horse race between Arsenal and Manchester City. How ironic. Arsenal remain top with 80 points, and behind them is Manchester City, of course, in second place with 79 points, but City still have a game in hand. Liverpool, having only won 1 game in their last 5, have fallen out of the title race while sitting in third with 75 points. Aston Villa still occupy 4th place, with Tottenham trying to edge them as the season comes to a close. It doesn't take much in the Premier League to fall out of favor in a title race, and we see here and now that it is just down to our two teams. Take it away, sir.
Like, couldn't have scripted any better, right? You know, 2 years on the show, 2 City Arsenal title races. Yeah, like I said last week, like Liverpool, like all hope is gone. I think there's still like a mathematical chance, but it's
Yep.
like, basically City and Arsenal would have to completely fall off a cliff at this point, and I don't expect either of those things to happen. Liverpool also have to be perfect through that stretch, and I also don't see that happening. They've just fallen apart in these last kind of stretches of Klopp's Liverpool time. But yeah, it's 3 games left for Arsenal, 4 games left for City. It's very weird to be sitting there saying there's about 360 or 270 minutes left of the season. I hate looking at it that way, but yeah, it is. I'm nervous for this one, Scarps. I don't like the feel of this one.
Well, you know what? It's interesting that you say that, because Arsenal, very early kickoff this upcoming Saturday against Bournemouth. That's not going to be an easy game. Solanke's been in top form this season. 18 goals he scored. And then I looked on it today, and I was so frustrated because I thought to myself, well, maybe Tottenham might do us a favor so long as Arsenal can win. And then they lose to Chelsea 2-0, and they put in a horrendous performance. And it's like, now I've got no faith in Tottenham. Not that I should have faith in Tottenham, but, it's so interesting, this title race. To your point about Liverpool, they've got 3 games left. They would have to win all 3 of those to even have a chance. They would end on 84 points. Likely not going to happen, even though it's mathematically possible. It really is down to our 2 teams. And yeah, I'm a little bit nervous too. But all it's going to take, I think, either way is one slip up at this point anyways, because there's such little time, right?
Yeah, and just speaking of the Tottenham thing, so they got slapped by Chelsea. They've got Liverpool on Sunday, who are probably going to slap them. And then you just know Tottenham's going to turn into like prime Barcelona or Real Madrid when they play City in that game in hand. They've been our bogey team for so long. It's just written in the stars that game is going to be like a nightmare for me. But yeah, I think Liverpool will probably end up beating them. I still don't think it'll be enough for them. And yeah, I really think one draw even, I think, would be enough to just kind of close this title race right off.
Well, and you know what? I mean, I guess it technically is possible. You could be seeing a situation where Arsenal and City go into the final match day level on points, and then you could have a last game that goes down to goal difference, which would be, I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, any club will take whatever to win, but I'm not sure, in terms of fans, do you really want to win a title on goal difference? You probably want to win it by the points. At least I do, I think.
No, the Aguero goal that won the league on goal difference.
Against your rivals, though.
Are City and Arsenal not rivals? I mean, I realize it's maybe not at the level of City and United, but as much as I love you, I don't want Arsenal to win the league.
I agree. I don't want City to win it either. I mean, that's why I say I will take it, but I feel like if you had the points on the board, you'd rather have it that way as opposed to the goal difference. But that's also why, in those games when you're playing your Sheffield Uniteds and you can get your extra goals and these sorts of things, that's why you do it. I remember who was the City manager back in the day, the Italian lad? Was it Mancini?
Mancini, yes.
Yeah, he always used to tell the guys, hey, second half, we're not going to take our foot off the pedal. If we can score some goals, that's what it might come down to. So,
he literally won a league doing that.
Right. And, so that's why I only bring that up, because it technically is a possibility with our 3 games left and then City's 4. You could be going into the final match day with that sort of on the table, but I believe that City would have to pick up a draw in the process, if my math serves me correct.
Yes, we would have to draw and then score 7 or 8 more goals than you guys
at this point in time, because the difference
at this point in time. Yes.
Got it. So yeah, all eyes are going to be there, and it's all down to it's not all down to this weekend. It all kind of kicks off this weekend with the next set of Premier League games, some really good games to be looking forward to for both of our clubs and all clubs around the Premier League, including what we're going to talk about now, and that is the relegation battle. The relegation battle in the Premier League remains both interesting and yet still not entirely clear. One thing that is clear, however, is that unfortunately Sheffield United, after their most recent defeat against Newcastle, have officially been relegated with 3 games to go in the season. They are at the bottom of the table with just 16 points. They've had a very difficult season, and now mathematically they cannot get out of trouble. They will be in the championship next season, and there still remains hope for the likes of Burnley and Luton, who are just above the bottom. Nottingham Forest is just outside the relegation zone, but it will only take one victory or one loss amongst any one of those three teams that we just mentioned, Burnley, Luton, Nottingham Forest, for things to shake up once again. So the relegation fight, G, is good and well on, and this weekend should be quite interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts here of what's happening down at the bottom.
Yeah, Nottingham Forest have a real opportunity here. They play the relegated Sheffield United. I say this lightly. It should be 3 points. At this point in the season, it has to be, but it really should be. Sheffield United have not been great at all. And this is a real lifeline for Forest to kind of get some separation from the relegation zone. Luton have to play Everton, and Burnley play Newcastle, which are two extremely difficult games. I think this kind of weekend is pretty make or break for Forest. If they can kind of get that separation, that might be all they need. And then, it's going to be tight, though.
It is. And the only thing I could say for that Forest game, just knowing how Wilder is as a manager and how Sheffield United is as a club, their DNA, they're going to be thinking, well, we're going down, you're coming down with us. They're not going to give Forest an easy game, I don't think, even though they know that they're already down.
No, absolutely not. And, for Sheffield United, they're basically playing as, dead men walking. Like, they're going down regardless. Like, they have nothing left to lose. Why not throw absolutely everything at these last couple of games?
Yep, I think so too. So relegation battle, maybe not as quite as exciting as what's happening at the top with Arsenal and City, but implications that are on the line obviously are massive. And those three teams, Burnley, Luton, and Nottingham Forest, will be doing everything in their power to survive. Out in Spain's La Liga, Real Madrid is nearly at the finish line, but not quite yet. They have an 11-point lead over second place Barcelona. Girona is third, and Atletico Madrid is fourth. G, 5 games remaining in La Liga. Can we officially say that it's Real Madrid's to win in due time?
Yeah, 5 games, 11-point gap. Unless Real Madrid just don't show up to any of their games, I don't think Barcelona have a chance here. Especially they play Girona this weekend as well. So, they basically need a win with that, or else that is basically done there. But yeah, Real Madrid surprisingly running away with it kind of near the end here.
Yeah, it was, I would say, semi-stable throughout the year. And then in the last third of the season, they completely took off. And, Barcelona made a slight comeback. Girona dipped off a bit. But, yeah, Real Madrid has been trending in that upward direction, right? And they deserve to be where they're at. And definitely one hand on the trophy, fingertips of their other hand on the trophy, and only a matter of time before they would get it, I would say. Italy Serie A is all down to the remaining European places now that Inter is champion, as we discussed in our last show. Milan is second, Juventus is third, and Bologna is fourth. Roma, Atalanta, and Lazio are all still fighting to get into those final European positions. Gitano, the amount of draws as of late in Serie A have had a significant increase. In fact, over the last 2 game weeks in Serie A, 40%, 40, of games have ended in draws. So nearly half of the games have ended in draws over the past 2 game weeks. Do you think, Gitano, that teams are playing nervous due to the sort of unknowingness of what might be happening with the European places?
Yeah, absolutely. That race for European spots is probably one of the tightest across Europe. And there's a couple teams that maybe aren't used to being in that conversation that are in there. So yeah, I think there's kind of an element of that fear of just, not wanting to make mistakes, just, it's better to win 1 point than lose all 3, right?
Totally.
And then also just the nature of Italian football is not, all out attacking. It's very defensive anyways. So when you have teams kind of already in that mindset, not wanting to take any risks, you are going to see those draws.
And you know what I put it down to as well, and this is why I think that there might be a little bit of nerves kicking in. When you see a team like Atalanta or Marseille getting to where they are in the Europa League, not having great seasons domestically, these teams must be thinking, well, if we could just sneak one of those final European positions, that could be us next season. And we don't even have to do that great domestically, but that could be us fighting for European glory. So I almost wonder if the nerves really are kicking in a little bit, because that fight for the European places is good and well on. So I think so. And like you said, one of the best races for European places in all of Europe. So love to be seeing that out there in Italy, Serie A. Always something good to entertain us. The Bundesliga's top four is still a matter of being sorted. The champions of this year's Bundesliga, Bayer Leverkusen, still remain undefeated, as we know, with just 3 games to go. Bayern Munich sits second with 69 points. Stuttgart is in third with 64 points, and Leipzig is in fourth with 62 points. Dortmund is fifth with 57 points, having lost their most recent league match. G, 2 questions for you here. Is Bayer Leverkusen going to finish this season unbeaten? Got to know that. And is Dortmund now out of the top 4 race for you?
I'm knocking on my wooden desk when I say I think Leverkusen might go unbeaten. I would love to see it. There's very few, truly invincible seasons in European football history. The only ones I can think of off the top of my head are Arsenal and Celtic. There might be some like way in the past, but recently, anyways, it's only been those 2 that I can think of. And I think doing it in the Bundesliga, no offense to the Scottish Premier League, but like the Bundesliga is one of the top leagues in the world. To be able to do that, and again, no disrespect to Arsenal's and Missiles either. The Premier League at that point isn't at the level of what the Bundesliga is now. You know what I mean? Like the leagues have just gotten better and better and better. And so I think to be able to do it kind of in this day and age is unbelievable. And as for Dortmund, I think they have their focus, solely on the Champions League at this point. And I can't blame them, being this close to the glory of it. So yeah, I think they might kind of stumble out of, that the Champions League spot there. But hey, if they go on and win the Champions League, there's their qualification next year anyways. So
exactly, it might be a null and void point for wherever they finish in the table. But in regards to Leverkusen, again, to your point, this, an invincible season may have happened down the line many years ago in Italy, Spain, France, wherever. But as we know, in Germany, it has never happened. Bayern Munich came close twice, only losing out by only having lost 1 game in 2 different seasons, but it's never happened. So for the sake of history, I hope that it happens too. And again, we're both backing Dortmund. We're behind Dortmund for the Champions League. So hopefully they get that, because I kind of think that they've fallen out of that top 4 race and all of their focus is on the Champions League, which it probably should be. And now it is time for both a local and regional soccer update. As high school soccer continues to be the main focus at this moment in time here locally in the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and of course across the province of Ontario from a youth soccer perspective, unique opportunities continue to offer themselves to young players here and beyond. The 30th annual Nipissing Invitational Soccer Tournament is at the center of regional competition, which will be held in the city of North Bay, Ontario from May 8th to 10th. Teams from across the province, including those here locally in Sault Ste. Marie, will have the opportunity to compete and test themselves against other competition outside of their own city. Gitano, I had the opportunity to attend this tournament last year for the first time with the junior girls team that I coach at Cora Collegiate, and we will be back there again this year. This tournament, in its 30th year of existence, is one of the more highly regarded tournaments in the province, as many teams head to the city of North Bay with the hopes of getting a trophy, relatively early on in their season, along with some valuable experience. So yeah, just fantastic in that way. But if you could, if you could speak to the importance really that this level of competition has for schools early on in their seasons and what it means overall for them.
Yeah, it's almost the Carabao Cup of high school soccer. A little earlier in your season than the actual Carabao Cup in England. But I think anytime that you're playing for a trophy in a competition against, other top teams, whether it's in the province, country, whatever, especially for these young kids, it's so huge for them, to be playing on this stage. Not a lot of them may, ever play on this type of stage ever again. This might be kind of their shot at glory. So yeah, I think it's absolutely huge for them. And always, to start your season off winning a trophy is a great accomplishment. And even for the teams that don't win, if you can go in and put in a good showing, play some kind of top level teams, or really kind of use it as a graph or a measuring bar, say, hey, like, the team that won this tournament, hey, we only lost with them to a goal. Like, let's build on that. It's huge. And also for the coaches kind of relay that message to these kids. I think it's huge for them as well.
It really is. And, I use that example. I'm glad that you brought that up. So the team that we actually played at this tournament last year ended up winning it. And it was and we put in a good performance that day, being a little bit undermanned and these types of things. They were a better side than us, of course, but they ended up winning this tournament. And that was a great confidence booster for us. It gave us valuable experience and allowed us to qualify and get to a city final here locally. Unfortunately, we did lose that final. But to your point, yeah, it gives you valuable experience. If you could win a trophy early on in your season, that's a great confidence booster. But it bodes well for so many reasons. And to that point that you mentioned, which it all comes back to the student athletes at this level, they might not ever play at this level of competition ever again in their life. So the fact that they can go and test themselves against other teams from around the province, I think, is a brilliant opportunity, not just for the kids, but for the exposure of the schools and obviously for the coaches as well. So definitely looking forward to being there next week. A reminder once more that the 30th annual Nipissing Invitational will be hosted in the city of North Bay, Ontario from May 8th to 10th. Games will take place at the Joe O'Michel Sports Complex as well as on the campus of Nipissing University's and their turf soccer field, which was just put in a couple of years ago, which is home to the Nipissing Lakers at the Surtees Student Athletic Center. My alumni, might I add. So we'll be happy to be back there and being able to see where I once was in the past. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you are listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we round out today's show, we want to thank you for spending a little bit of time with us talking about the sport that connects us all. G, well done tonight, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk the beautiful game, especially at this time of the year. And good luck at the tournament next week.
Well, thank you very much, sir, and I'll keep you posted on how things go. And it's all on to this weekend where we get to watch some footy. And yeah, this time of year is great because it's just soccer nonstop, and that kind of goes for us on our show here too. Because a reminder to all of you, our listeners, that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of May 6th. 2024. In that show, we will discuss Europe's Big Five, the Champions League, the Europa League, the Conference League, the MLS, and local soccer. As always, we will keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.